Okay, welcome to Hanging Out with Bob, a podcast hosted by me, Bob at Home. Thanks for joining us, and let's get started. Okay, listeners, I'm going to throw out this date, November 9th, 1966. Now, unless you were born on or before that date, November 9th, 1966, it was literally before your time. On the other hand, if you're a fan of the Beatles and are just really good at remembering dates, November 9th, 1966 will mean something to you. Because it was on that date, November 9th, 1966, that Beatle Paul McCartney was supposedly killed in a car crash on his way home from the recording studio. The three other Beatles, John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, wanting to save their fans from the heartache of losing Paul and dealing with the loss of their bandmate, decided to conceal the truth, perhaps not by choice, and replace Paul with the winner of a Paul McCartney lookalike contest. The story goes that in the years following that tragic incident, the remaining Beatles were racked with guilt and began leaving clues and messages in their music and material to communicate the truth to the fans. The Paul is dead rumor is nearly 60 years old now, but it's still something fans of the Beatles, fans of conspiracy theories, or fans of urban legends in general like to talk about. Joining me in this episode to talk about the Paul is dead rumor / phenomenon / conspiracy theory / urban legend / hoax is my nephew, Luke at Home. We're recording this podcast episode from my palatial recording studio here in Columbia Heights, Minnesota. Okay, we're sitting at a dining room table in my apartment with microphones in front of us and headphones over our ears. But if that ain't palatial, I don't know what is.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here with you, Bob. I've wanted to record one of these for a while, and this topic is something that I think we're both very interested in, and it'll be a lot of fun to talk about it.
Yeah, that's right. Now, although Luke is from the Twin Cities area, he grew up here in Andover, to be specific, he's actually visiting from his current residence in Austria. Yeah, that beautiful landlocked country in Central Europe, lying in the Eastern Alps. Luke was back here in the States for the wedding of his sister Rosa, and for this podcast episode, of course.
Of course.
Luke holds a PhD in mathematics from The Ohio State University, and he's a teacher and researcher at the University of Vienna. He and Katrin, or Kat, have an adorable, nearly 2-year-old daughter, Hannah. Luke, again, welcome to Hanging Out with Bob, or should I say, hanging out with Uncle Bob.
Yeah, as I said, it's great to be here, and I'm really looking forward to this episode.
Yeah, it will be fun. Now, in this podcast episode, Luke and I are actually going to talk about two topics. The first topic is the one we had already teased you with, the Paul is dead rumor. And the second topic, and equally interesting, I think, is about the 27 Club, which refers to the phenomenon of popular musicians, singers, and singer-songwriters who died at age 27. Often due to drug abuse, suicide, or violent circumstances. Both topics were suggested by Luke, and I can't wait to talk about the both of them. Okay, part one of this podcast episode, the Paul is dead rumor. Now, Luke, you're a millennial, just like my daughter and your cousin Gretchen. You're both huge Beatles fans, and yet the both of you were born more than 20 years after Paul McCartney's alleged car crash in November of 1966. How did you come up with the suggestion to talk about the Paul is dead rumor?
Well, it's something that I've been interested in the Beatles since high school. I've really loved their music, and when I got into their music, you know, my dad told me, and probably you too, told me some of the lore around the Beatles, and this was one of the big things that we talked about. You know, my dad played Abbey Road for me, and he showed me the album cover and said, "Look, this is a funeral. It's a funeral procession." And
look how they're each is dressed.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So I think we'll go into I think later we'll go in to all the details on the cover there. Yep. But it was something that I got really interested in. Thinking about it now that I'm I got into this 20 years ago and seeing the sort of the vast landscape that we have of conspiracy theories now that are largely, I think, fueled by the internet. It's surprising and very interesting to me how something like this would have spread before the internet was around. And I looked into a bit as to how this rumor propagated, where it started, and some of the sort of mainstream publications even back in the late 60s that touched on it. So I think it's very interesting just from a cultural perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And just to provide you some context here, regarding November of 1966, I, your humble host, was 13 years old, an eighth grader. Lyndon Johnson was president of the United States. The Baltimore Orioles had just swept the Los Angeles Dodgers in the 1966 World Series. A gallon of gas, regular gas, was about 32 cents. The Sound of Music had received the Academy Award for Best Picture earlier that year. The cost of a new car, about $3,500. Now, again, we have to consider inflation, but still,
Sure.
It just sounds absurd now.
Right.
So much has changed since the mid-'60s, and yet this Paul is Dead legend lives on. Okay, Luke, let's take that deep dive into how the Paul is Dead urban myth came about. While it was alleged that Paul McCartney had died on November 9th, 1966, the rumors really took off in the fall of 1969, nearly 3 years later. Between November 1966 and the fall of 1969, the Beatles are said to have covered up the death, despite inserting a series of clues into their songs and artwork of photos on their albums. More on the clues in a bit. A little bit deeper on the story itself. It goes that at 5 a.m. on a Wednesday, November 9th, 1966, Paul had left a recording session for the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album. He got into his Austin Healey, a British sports car, and subsequently crashed and died. As a result of that accident and death, Paul was said to have been replaced by a lookalike called variously, do you know any of those names?
Yeah. William Campbell, or more colloquially known as Billy Shears.
Yep. That's who the lookalike was. He became the new Paul, according to the story. And not to put a damper entirely in the story, but and not to let facts get in the way of a good story, but between November 6th and November 19th of 1966, Paul and former girlfriend, do you remember her name?
Linda Eastman?
No, it was before that.
Okay, I see. I don't know.
You remember Jane Asher?
Right,
Yeah.
That's right.
They were supposedly on a holiday traveling through France and Kenya during those days, or November 6th and November 19th. And if you believe the latter, that Paul was out of the country with Jane Asher, then the crash never happened. But like I said, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. However, a couple of relevant incidents did take place. First, on December 26, 1965, the day after Christmas, and almost a full year before Paul was rumored to have died in his sports car, Paul crashed his moped. You know what a moped is, right? It's kind of like a scooter. It's got pedals on it. He was in a crash on that, and as a result, he had chipped a tooth, which you can see, I think, in some videos of they're playing like Paperback Writer in Rain. Mm-hmm. And then he developed a scar on his lip from that accident. So he grew out his mustache. That was supposed to cover that up. That actually did happen. And then on January 7th, 1967, so about a couple months after the alleged accident on November 9th, 1966, Paul's Mini Cooper, that's a British car that's even smaller than a Volkswagen Beetle, just a tiny little car, it was involved in an accident on the M1 motorway outside London. However, the car was driven by a Moroccan student named, do you know this guy's name? Mohammed Haji.
Okay.
He was driving that car, his Mini Cooper, and Paul was not in it. Haji, he was an assistant to a London art gallery owner named Robert Fraser, another person I'd never heard of till I started researching this. Anyway, those two guys, Muhammad and Robert, had turned up at Paul's house on the evening of January 7th, 1967, and were later joined by three guys you probably have heard of, Luke. They were members of the Rolling Stones.
Yes.
Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and Brian Jones. Oh, and there's an antiques dealer named Christopher Gibbs. He was also at the party. This would be a great question in a pub trivia quiz.
Yeah, definitely.
Name the people at that party. Anyway, the party decided to head to Jagger's home in a city called Hertfordshire before moving on to the Redlands, which is, I guess, a mansion that Keith Richards owned in Sussex. And Paul had traveled with Jagger in his Mini Cooper, while Haji drove Paul's Mini Cooper. The two cars became separated during the journey. I don't know if they were under the influence or what, but they got separated. And Haji crashed Paul's Mini Cooper and was hospitalized with injuries. And it was a really heavily customized car, I guess, and it was very recognizable. So the rumors began circulating that Paul was the driver and had died in that accident. But fortunately, no one was killed from this specific incident. And but that's, I think, how they tried to associate it with Paul as well. Had you heard about that story?
I had a little bit. I do know that going back to, you mentioned 1969 is when the rumors picked up.
Yes.
Even going back to 1967, in certain Beatles fan magazines, they discussed this crash and said there was a rumor of a car crash involving Paul McCartney. So this was out there. And I think it took a couple years before it really picked up steam.
Momentum,
but this is where the rumor itself does go back a few years before 1969, and probably because of this crash.
In the research I did, maybe you came across some of the same stuff, Luke, but the way this rumor really began to take off, at least in the States, the first known print reference was in an article written by a guy named Tim Harper, which appeared in the September 17th, 1969 edition of the Times-Delphic, which is the newspaper of Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. Yeah. And he had written this story about that incident. Let's see, so September 17th, 1969, that was just a month after Woodstock, which was one of the largest musical festivals in history, and just 2 months had passed since the first moon landing, just to put that in context. Mm-hmm. But back to Drake University student Tim Harper's article, which asked, is Beatle Paul McCartney dead? Harper later claimed that he wasn't the original source for any of the claims in his article. He said he was writing, air quotes here, for entertainment purposes only. Harper said he got the information from a fellow student named D'Artagnan Brown. Had you come across that name?
I didn't, no.
He went to Drake University, and he was more than just a student. He went on to become, I think he was a jazz musician. I think he's also a writer and artist. But he said he got the information from a musician who had heard it on the West Coast in California, and that he had read the story in an underground newspaper, although I couldn't find anywhere where this underground newspaper came from. But anyway, a couple of names, Tim Harper, a writer from the Times-Delphic at Drake, and then D'Artagnan Brown, a fellow student there. The Paul is dead rumors gained momentum quickly, though. On October 12th, 1969, do you have this information about the DJ in Michigan?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So there was a radio program that was put on, and I think the station was WKNR in Detroit.
Yep.
And a caller had called in to sort of spill the beans about this, and of course the Beatles were huge at this time, and this sort of a rumor is really, I think, going to be shocking to people. And so I think shortly after the caller, then the radio station put on a 2-hour program entitled The Beatle Plot. And I think this is where a lot of the quote-unquote canonical clues that we know about sort of entered the public consciousness. Again, there wasn't the internet in those days,
no
and
social media, so
there needed to be some method of propagation for these clues to get out there, and everybody knows about the Abbey Road album cover. This getting it on the radio and getting it in magazines, helped. This gets out to everybody.
Yep. The radio presenter, he was a DJ named Russ Gibb. And he had got a caller. The caller that called in the station only went by Tom. But he's the one that was saying, he's the one that talked about if you play the song Revolution 9 backward, backmasking is what they call that. By the way, I've had stereos before, but I never was able to get that to work, playing a record backwards.
Oh, really?
I'll take people's word for it. You can hear this stuff.
The radio or the record player that's at my parents' house, you can just unhook the belt and you spin it yourself.
Okay. Do it manually.
You do it manually. Right.
Because there's no gear on the button that says reverse or whatever. So you can play it. So anyway, Tom had said that he said to backmask the number 9 phrase, and that comes out to be "Turn Me On, Dead Man" or something to that effect. So, and there was a student reporter from the University of Michigan paper called the Michigan Daily. He wrote an article about that radio show, so that spread the word as well. Right. And in fact, his name was Fred Labor. And he was quoted as saying after that article, years after, he said he invented William Campbell, the name. He said, I made the guy up. It was originally going to be Glenn Campbell with 2 N's in Glenn, And then I said, that's too close. Nobody will buy that. So I made it William Campbell. And that's thus the name was born. The Michigan Daily published Fred LeBour's article on October 14th under the title, McCartney Dead, New Evidence Brought to Light. Although clearly intended as a joke, he said, it had an impact far wider than the writer and his editor expected. So.
Right.
And then you mentioned thing about the Beatle plot. Talk a little bit more about that then. It was this by Russ Gibb, the DJ at that radio station.
Well, I think that they went through a lot of the. I think this caller brought to light some of some of these different clues and sort of the story. I think November. I'm not sure about the original November 9th date, but actually there's when we get into the clues, the numbers 111X will it appears on the Sgt. Pepper drum when you hold a mirror in the middle.
Oh, right.
There's two ways to interpret that. It could be, it's the numeral 1 and then the letters 1 written out and then the numeral 1 and then an X. That's what happens when you shine a mirror halfway through the word lonely.
Oh, okay.
Now, that could be like, well, there were 4 Beatles, 111X, and one of them's X'd out.
Yeah.
The other thing that you could consider is it's 11, so like 11, and then 1X, so the Roman numeral 9. Now, that's a stretch. If you're writing things in Roman numerals, then you'd have X and then 1 and then 1 and then X for that. Not to mention the fact that in Britain, they write dates. The day, then the month, then the year. So, so it really would be September 11th instead of 11/9. But since this rumor was catching on in the U.S., I think that might have had something to do with that particular date. I'm not sure, but so these clues. It'd be really interesting if there was. I didn't look too hard, but if there was actually some kind of recording of that radio. Show. To hear exactly what they talked about.
You'd think WKNR or whoever owns it now would have had that in archive.
They might have some kind of archived copy, but I don't know if it's available on the internet. But it might be fun to write them and see if we can get our hands on it. But so I think that this is where some of the clues came from, and then that article in the Michigan Daily was where. I think they wrote up a bunch of the things that were discussed in this, and so I think things like the Abbey Road album cover, like the Sgt. Pepper's
Magical Mystery Tour.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now the Beatles themselves, by that I mean John, George, and Ringo. They were not formally involved in creating the conspiracy theory. It was really a fan-generated phenomenon that got it going, and it gained traction in the late '60s. But the Beatles themselves didn't exactly discourage the rumors. Right. It was kind of like pro wrestling. It was like kayfabe.
Right, exactly.
We'll just kind of go along with this.
They leaned into it.
Yes.
I mean, even the supposedly. I mean, some of these rumors are I think kind of ridiculous. But the walrus was supposedly a Scandinavian symbol of death. Well, if you look this up, I don't think there's any really other than this rumor. I don't think that the walrus has anything to do with death in Scandinavian culture.
And you've got some Scandinavian. I got some Scandinavian. Right. I've never heard that before.
Right, exactly. But so the Beatles had their costumes in the Magical Mystery Tour, and somehow it was rumored that walruses have to do with death, and Paul was the walrus. Well, John was the walrus. In fact,
he was actually wearing the costume.
Yeah, he was wearing the costume, and he's singing. He's singing in the song "I'm the Walrus." But as far as leaning into this, now this would have also happened in 1968. So before this stuff, but when the White Album came out. The song "Glass Onion," which I think people, sometimes say a glass onion is it actually known as a coffin, or is this something that also came from this, maybe like they have the body on display behind glass or something, and John says in that, he goes, well, here's another clue for you all, the walrus was Paul. and so then, oh wow, he's really, so it's not clear to me because the rumor hadn't really picked up by this time yet if that was meant to sort of push this forward, or if if it was just some nonsensical lyric that he put in that then was later reinterpreted to be some kind of validation of this theory. But people definitely interpreted it that way.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah, good point. Okay, Luke, we've looked at how the Paul is dead rumor took off in the fall of 1969. So now let's take a look at some of the more notorious clues regarding the Paul is dead theory, which again claimed Paul McCartney died in a 1966 car crash and was replaced by a look-alike, with the Beatles leaving clues in album art and lyrics. And to me, Luke, this is the fun part, when you actually read about the clues and then you look at the albums themselves and go, oh, okay, this is interesting. What is we're going to list a bunch of them, but is there one clue, whether it's artwork or a song lyric, that sticks out to you the most? Or?
So to me, the most remarkable clue is the one I talked about, that if you hold a mirror halfway through the Sgt. Pepper drum.
Yeah, that bass drum on the cover, Sgt. Pepper.
The bass drum on the cover, right. It says Lonely Hearts down the middle.
Yeah.
If you cut that in half and look at the mirror, now this was before CDs were out, but I know I had the CD booklet and the CD, so I could just do it right with my CD. If you had the album, you'd actually need to take a real mirror.
Yeah.
So Lonely, Lonely. If you think about what that looks like when you cut it in half and look at the top half reflected, the L just becomes like the numeral 1.
Yeah.
O-N-E reflected down. The O is symmetrical, E is symmetrical, N isn't symmetrical, but it's still it still kind of looks like an N. So 1, and then you think about heart. The Y, or the L becomes another 1.
Mm-hmm.
The Y, you think about the top of a Y that reflects down and looks like an X. So you got this 1, X. Now the word heart, H is symmetrical, so that just becomes an H.
Yeah.
E is symmetrical, so that becomes an E.
Right.
The A, it's just the top half of the A. So what it is, it looks like an arrow pointing up. Who's directly above that arrow?
Paul.
It's Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then R-T-S, or R-T-S, well, the R reflected down looks like a D. The T reflected down, it looks like an I. And the S, the way that it's kind of cut off, it looks like an E. So it says 111X, he, arrow up at Paul, die. And that's something that was probably not conceived by the Beatles to put any clue like that in there, but it is pretty remarkable that you can, if you dig hard enough, you can find things like that. And that's a really crazy clue, I think. But yeah, the Sgt. Pepper album cover just has so many things like this. I mean, it's clearly it's a burial
it's
scene.
like a grave or funeral.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, where they had the coffin. Another important clue on that is they have a left-handed bass guitar,
right,
with the
flowers,
yellow
right?
the yellow hyacinths,
yeah.
and the word. And I don't think this is too much of a stretch. If you look at how the flowers are arranged, it's in a bass guitar, but it looks like it spells out P-A-U-L with a question mark. And so that's another clue that I think really, once people kind of notice this, I think really would have caught on. And then if you open, Sgt. Pepper's was one of the first things with albums with a gatefold sleeve, where you could open it up, and this let them have a really big group photo shot. And it's the four of them in their costumes. Yep. Paul's in the blue, and he's got a patch on his arm. Yeah. What the patch actually says is OPP, and it's something he picked up in Canada. It says Ontario Provincial Police.
Yeah.
Right, but the way his arm is positioned, it looks like OPD, which was then interpreted to mean he's officially pronounced dead.
Like
exactly.
DOA here, right? Like
right, DOA here, right. I think in Britain though that's it's more or less equivalent. So you have those. If you turn Sgt. Pepper over, Paul is backwards. Now the Beatles did this sort of thing with him in a lot of their photo shoots, where the rest of them would be doing one pose and he'd be doing something different.
Right.
Okay, now going from there to saying, well, that's a clue that he's dead. Maybe that's a stretch, but
it was Billy Shears.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So the three of them are standing forward with Paul turned around.
Yeah.
And Sgt. Pepper was also, I believe, the first album that ever had all of the lyrics to every song printed on the cover. So right at the top of Paul's head is the lyrics for within you without.
Oh, right.
Within you without you.
Yeah.
And then he's also then if you look at George's hand. George is making he's like making a pointing symbol. Now, if you look at all of them, what it really looks like George, John, and Ringo are doing is they're spelling out love with their hands. And Paul's backwards, so you don't see his hand, but you see an L and then a V and then an E. But George is supposedly pointing to the lyric Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock. And so that was, they're dropping the clues about what happened. And so, right, exactly. Also on the album cover, you have the very front of the burial scene, you have Shiva, the Hindu god, and so you've got, the symbol is Shiva symbolizes creation and destruction, and I mean, you can interpret that what you will. I think that this is just me looking into it. The Beatles have their old selves on the album, wax dummies of themselves, and I think probably what they originally were going for was, well, the old Beatles, the 60s version of a boy band that was kind of clean cut and wearing the suits, that has been buried, and now they're fully into the 60s, fully into the the counterculture, and that's what this was. But you get fans, many of whom probably are taking mind-altering substances to oh yeah, man, this has got to be of course he died, and this has got to be what they're leaving these clues for us. So another couple things on the album there, you have the Shirley Temple doll that is wearing a sweater that says "Welcome the Rolling Stones," and in that on that doll, on one of the legs, is a small car, and if you zoom in really close, it looks like the interior of the car is red, so symbolizing blood from this car crash. So again, I think some of these things are maybe a bit of a stretch, but some of the clues are. I mean, it's clearly a burial scene. The 111X he die is so crazy that it looks like that. I can really see how someone would be like, okay, maybe there's something to this. So I would say Sgt. Pepper. You also got to look any clues. Some people try to retroactively find clues in even going back to Rubber Soul or Revolver. But if you look, Revolver came out August 5th, 1966. So that's before Paul's alleged death. So I think if you're going to look at the sort of canonical clues, you've got to look from Sgt. Pepper on. So Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour, the White Album, Abbey Road. I don't know how many supposed clues there were in Let It Be, but
I've never heard of anything.
Right. But so we can continue going down the clues unless you have something else to say about Sgt. Pepper.
That's a good summary of the stuff that I had as well. Oh yeah, the Day in the Life. There's that line where he blew his mind out in the car.
Well, right. I guess true. If we're going to talk about so we can I guess talk about lyrics like as they go by album. So first of all, with a little help from my friends, Ringo played Billy Shears, or he sang the parts, and it's this introduction to Billy Shears, and he's got the line, "I'll try not to sing out of tune." So Paul's got this new replacement, and he's I think largely going to be a stand-in for the Beatles also stopped touring at this time.
Oh yeah,
they did. So if they just got a guy in for photo shoots and he wasn't really having to sing or play the instruments, well, of course they stopped touring because their bass player died.
He's dead.
Yeah, right. You have "Good Morning." There's the lyric, "Nothing to do to save his life. Call his wife in." So I guess he was killed in this car crash and nothing they could do.
Yep.
And then, of course, day in the life, he blew his mind out in a car. He didn't notice that the lights had changed.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And just the kind of general that song has some, it's really epic, but it's also kind of sad, and it sounds like it's lamenting something. And so if you listen to it and kind of read into, well, yeah, of course they're mourning their dead Beatle.
Sure.
So I think that all of that, if you are looking for evidence that Paul died, your brain is very good at taking things and looking at them through a particular lens and seeing, well, of course, these are all clues.
Yeah. Yep. Let's move on to Magical Mystery Tour, which was released in November 1967. The cover of that, like you had mentioned earlier, has got the four Beatles in costumes. And the rumor was that, first of all, the black walrus symbolizes death. And John later sings on the White Album that Walrus is Paul, even though it was John that was wearing the costume. But that was supposedly a clue. And then there's a booklet that came with that album. And on page 3, there's Paul is sitting at a desk with a sign that says, I was.
I was, that's right.
Which kind of symbolizes, that means I'm not alive.
Yeah, right. He was, but he's not anymore.
And then this one, I think we talked about when we were texting back and forth, but in Strawberry Fields, there's that phrase at the end, supposedly John is saying, or a voice real slow is going, I buried Paul.
Right.
But then John later said, I'm actually saying cranberry sauce, which I don't know what that has to do with anything, but he's kind of playing that down. But that often gets cited as a clue. So
so some of the lyrical clues, you could read into some of the ones we talked about on Sgt. Pepper. You can kind of read into them and say, oh, they're talking about death or a car accident. This one is more direct, and you don't have to play the album backwards to hear this. And listening to it, and both on the album version and on some of the Beatles anthology, where they do the same thing, I think it does sound like I Buried Paul.
Yeah.
But there's plausible deniability because it's kind of, muttered, and it's at the very end, and can't really tell. And John was a goofy guy anyway who might just say a random thing like cranberry sauce, but it does sound like I Buried Paul. Yeah. You certainly hear the berry part, and then something like sauce or Paul. And that's definitely there. In the movie, and this is also included in the booklet. In the song, your mother would know, or your mother should know. Yeah. They have they're all wearing suits, right? Yep. Yeah. And they've got carnations, and John, Paul, and George have a red carnation. Paul's got a black one. Yeah. So he was always doing something different, but of course, black symbolizes death and mourning. There's one other thing that we didn't cover on the Sgt. Pepper that I want to. There are several pictures of Paul in official album art where there's a hand that's over his head
on the front cover.
So on the front cover of Sgt. Pepper, they do have this hand over his head. I think the hand belongs to a British comedian named Issy Bon. Also, sort of in between Issy Bon's hand and his head, there's another famous British writer and poet named Stephen Crane, who died at a young age, and he wrote a song called, or a poem or a short story called "The Open Boat," which was based on his experience surviving a shipwreck, in which 4 men, he and 3 other men, ended up in a lifeboat. One of them drowned, and he hopped in and swam to shore. And he's kind of barely visible between Issabon's hand and his head, and they're both, of course, right above Paul. So this was another thing. But so the hand over the head, that was also there in the Magical Mystery Tour booklet. Yeah. There's a picture of Paul, and there's somebody behind him is waving or cheering, and so that was something that it wasn't just in one photo. I think there's several photos of something like this.
Yep.
Let's see. As far as the other photo, maybe this is on your list to talk about too. It's the 4 Beatles playing in the Magical Mystery Tour booklet. And on Ringo's bass drum, it says, "Love from the," and it's something that's scratched out. And then next to the scratched out is the number 3. Love from the Three Beatles. It says it there. And Paul's shoes are right next to Paul's, or shall we say, William Campbell is standing there pretending like he's playing the bass.
Yeah.
He's barefoot, and the shoes are right next to the bass drum. So, I guess nobody could fill the real Paul McCartney shoes, and this was, one of the clues there. But it really does look like Love from the, and something is scratched out, and it says Three Beatles.
Yep. Okay, next is the White Album, which was released in November of 1968. And the first thing that I thought of, they're all songs, so it's lyrical stuff that I'm thinking of, because literally the album is white. I mean, it's just a white cover. But the Glass Onion that you mentioned earlier, where he said, here's another clue for you all, the Walrus is Paul. The Revolution number 9 with the backmasking.
Right.
If you repeat, it says "Turn Me On, Dead Man,"
and just the general creepiness.
Oh yeah, I remember the first time I heard it, I go, "This doesn't make any sense." I was like 16. I'm going, "What is this?" I wasn't sure. You remember the song "I'm So Tired"?
Oh yes.
Yeah, because I think that's where John supposedly said, "Was it Paul is dead man, miss him."
Paul is a dead man, miss him, miss him, miss him.
And then Ringo has a song from that album that was "Don't Pass Me By."
Yep, which is about a car.
Yeah, you were in a car crash and you lost your hair. Yeah, which interpreted as a reference to the car accident. And then there were a lot of photos and posters with this album.
Yes.
And I think of that one where Paul is lying in a bathtub.
Yes.
And makes you think that, he's like lying in a coffin.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's the photo collage that, if you have the CD booklet, they sort of cut it up and you have to page through to look at all of it. But in the actual album, it was a big poster with all the stuff together. Yep. And the one with him in the bathtub is, that's... It looks like maybe he's if you use your imagination, you can imagine him lying in a coffin.
Yep. And some backwards messages there, like Revolution 9 has it.
Yes.
And then I'm gonna have to listen to this again because I haven't paid that close attention to it. But I guess the song transitions into Blackbird, which I've always loved that song by Paul. But I guess there's a lot of reverse messages if you look for that. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am, and I think I've played it. So Blackbird, this is still on album 1 on the second side. Yeah. The song before that is, I think maybe it's I think it's I'm So Tired and then Blackbird.
Okay.
And so I think at the end of in between, sort of the transition between this is where the Paul is dead man, miss him comes in.
Okay.
Right.
Because Blackbird itself, I just remember he's playing the guitar.
Yep.
There was no other kind of introduction I could think of, but that was mentioned as some clues for that.
Since we're on the White Album,
yes.
Here's a piece of Beatles trivia that not that many people know. What do you know anything unique about? I don't want to give it away, but in the song "I Will," do you know anything? Does anything strike you as unique about this song? Well, in that song, and if you listen to it, Paul's doing the bass line with his mouth. He's not playing the bass with his mouth, but he's going doop doop doop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
wow.
that's a little piece of Beatles trivia for you.
Paul is making the sounds of the bass with his mouth.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they were creative.
Yes.
Okay, let's go on to Abbey Road, the next album.
Yes.
That was released in September of 1969.
Right.
And let's talk about the front cover, because that's just amazing. First of all, it's like a funeral procession.
Yes, exactly.
Describe what each of those guys were wearing.
Yeah, well, John's wearing white, and so he's like the priest or the religious
clergy,
figure, and he's leading the procession, followed by Ringo, who's in black. And he represents the Undertaker.
Yep.
Paul is barefoot, out of step.
Yep.
Remember, Paul was supposedly a left-handed guy. He's got a cigarette in his
the
right
heater
hand.
in the right hand. Yep.
And George is in denim.
Yep.
And he it represents the gravedigger.
Yep. And like he said, all of them have their left foot forward.
Yes.
Except Paul, he's got his right foot forward.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, that was interesting. Okay. And then the notorious license plate on the Volkswagen Beetle.
It looks like it says 28 IF. So he would have been 28 if he would have lived. Well, Paul was born in 1942.
So he's 27.
So I think he would have been 27, but I guess the next year he would have been 28. Right, exactly.
Yep. And then have you heard what the LMW stands for before the 28?
So I don't know what it
I've heard a
supposedly
couple
stands
things.
for.
Linda McCartney, wife or
Yes,
widow.
Linda McCartney weeps.
Yeah,
yes,
that's
that's right. I have heard that. Yes.
And the back cover is really interesting as well. You can see a woman kind of on the right side of the back cover wearing a blue dress, walking by. She's kind of out of focus.
Right.
But on the there's like a brick wall, and there's several things on there that I thought were interesting. First of all, there's a set of tiles that spells out Beatles.
Yep.
But the S at the end has a crack running through it.
Yes.
So it's almost like the Beatles have split up.
Right.
There's one that's
Which
gone.
they were about to do. Anyway.
They did. Yep.
Yeah.
And then this is one that I completely forgot about till I saw it. To the left of those tiles that spells out Beatles, there are 8 dots you can see. When you connect those dots, again, this is a stretch. If you connect them, you can get a 3 out of it. And that means there's only 3 Beatles, which you talked about before. And then another one I didn't see till I researched this. I've had that album for over 50 years, but I never looked at that closely. To the right of that Beatles tile, almost looks like a skull looking at Beatles.
Yes. Yeah, in the shadow.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I've seen that one before. That again, it's kind of a stretch, but if if you look at it the right way, you can see a skull there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Abbey Road, because it would have come out around the time that this rumor was really going to pick up steam.
1969.
That this is maybe the most iconic. Sgt. Pepper, I think, is clearly. I mean, it's very clearly some sort of burial scene.
Yeah.
And there are some pretty remarkable clues, but Abbey Road, this is probably the most iconic. Picture that the Beatles, either that or it's hard to say, either that or Abbey Road is the most iconic album cover they had. But both of them seem to have. Paul is doing something different in this picture, just like he was backwards on the back of Sgt. Pepper, and I guess that means that he's dead.
Yep, no longer with us. So.
Some of the thing, if you look at lyrics on some of the songs, again, this is a stretch, but I've seen this, even the "come together right now over me." Well, they're closing the coffin on it, and the coffin's coming together, and, so again, probably a stretch, but if you're looking for validation of this, then it's there.
Yep. And then, are you at all familiar with the album? It literally came out in 1966, but it was called Yesterday and Today.
Yes.
There are several versions of that cover.
Yes.
I remember the original one. It was pretty grisly. It showed the
Butcher
Beatles.
album.
Yeah, they were wearing like white coats like they were in a butcher shop. And it was mixed with a bunch of
baby
raw
doll parts.
raw meat and then dolls that were cut up into
baby dolls
pieces.
that were cut up into pieces, right? And the Butcher album.
Yeah, and I remember they took that off the shelves in America, and they had a different one where they were like Paul was sitting inside a suitcase,
of a trunk,
which could have been maybe like a coffin too. I don't know, but they had a couple different versions. But I've heard that sometimes linked to Paul as well. So I can't remember exactly when that was released in '66 because supposedly the death was in November 9th, but they do mention that sometimes. Is like what was the purpose of that cover?
Right. It just kind of I mentioned the 111X and how if you're using the American date system and then mixing our regular numeral system with Roman numerals, you get 11-9.
Yeah.
But in the British system, then it's 9/11. Well, I'm surprised that of all the different 9/11 conspiracies out there, that this maybe they were predicting that back. Well, have you seen that Supertramp album?
Yeah.
What is it called? Where it has a waitress on it,
and
sure. and it's got New York City in the background. And if you look at it's spelling out Supertramp, it has 9/11 right behind where the World Trade Center is. So that's that's another. We're not talking about that, but album covers do have some crazy coincidences.
Yeah, exactly. So. All right, well, these clues, they're part of a wider, largely fan-driven theory, reviewed as quote-unquote intentional breadcrumbs left by the band, though they're generally considered coincidental or jokes by the Beatles. And while these clues fueled a massive 1969 conspiracy, which we've been talking about for the last several minutes, Paul consistently dismissed them. He even humorously came out with an album in 1993 called Paul is Live.
Yes.
So
Well, and there was also Life magazine.
Yeah,
actually
Life,
sent
yes,
somebody out
up to
because
Scotland.
for a couple months after the Drake University University of Michigan paper and the Detroit radio program,
Yeah.
I think the Daily Mail even put out some kind of a addressing this,
Yep.
and then the rumor was going for a few months, and in November of 1969. Life magazine sent someone out to
That's
Paul
right.
McCartney's.
He had a farm in
his
Scotland or
farm,
something.
exactly,
Yeah,
and they took a bunch of pictures of him, and the story goes, I think he got really upset that they were there taking pictures of him, and he demanded the pictures, and then agreed to give an interview in exchange for them
photos.
giving up the photos that they took. And he did give an interview, and in this he said, "No, I'm very much alive, and this is all ridiculous."
Yeah.
But and so maybe at that point, some of the rumor died down.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about it almost 60 years
later. Yep. Okay, this next section is next segment, Luke. We'll call it maybe the Mythbusters
Yes.
segment. And we'll talk about some of these clues and then how they've kind of been explained away
Sure.
or shown what really happened. And I think first and foremost is there's really no evidence of a crash. Just despite the theory claiming the accident happened in 1966, there are no police reports, no hospital records, no news stories at that time, no death certificates from that time to support a fatal car crash. Then there's something called double logic. It's considered implausible that a lookalike, William Campbell, Billy Shears, could perfectly replicate one, McCartney's unique singing voice, two, his songwriting talent, three, his bass playing ability, and left-handed to boot, and then Paul's personality without anyone in the inner circle, family, friends, saying, Paul's just not the same. Something, So it's like, okay. And then the physical...
Well, they did stop touring.
They did.
So maybe they had session musicians actually playing the stuff.
I know they talked about some physical evidence as well. Proponents often cite the 1966 car accident, but photos used to show a hidden injury are actually from a 1965 motorcycle accident where Paul chipped a tooth and cut his lip. That was from that. And then the Abbey Road misconceptions, Paul kind of gave some lame excuses because I've seen pictures of before they actually crossed the street and took the formal pictures. Paul was wearing a pair of sandals.
Right.
He was standing there because it was probably hot.
It was hot, and he said that's why he took them
off. And
he
said he took them off to be comfortable. Well, no, then you wouldn't be doing that. And then I think purposely holding a cigarette in his right hand, he said, let's mess with him. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, I think that's probably what happened.
And then you had mentioned earlier too, Luke, that the 28 if, he actually would have been 27 in 1966. But again, let's not let the facts get in the way. Good story.
And in fact, I think really it's LMW and then 28.
Wasn't it a
and
one?
Then one and then an F. So it's not even an I, but it it looks kind of like an I. Sure.
Yep. And then just the productivity of this lookalike.
Right.
He wrote songs like Penny Lane and Hey Jude after Paul had died. And then the massive body of work, over 25 original studio albums, either as a solo artist or with Wings. I mean, so this lookalike, he was so prolific.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And then, I don't know, maybe you've seen some stuff where they talk about physical changes and that. They say that there's some subtle differences in photos, the shape of his ears,
well, the cut on his the chipped tooth, and I think he had this cut on his lip. I mean, that did show up, and it wasn't there in the early Beatles pictures. And I think people cited this.
That was probably the moped,
exactly.
They're talking about, right? So, okay. So the cover-up, it would require the complicity of the remaining Beatles. They all had to sign some old non-disclosure agreement. Managers, roadies, record executives, police, all of whom would have to keep this secret for decades, which is logistically improbable. And then Paul's own response. I mean, he came out with that album, Paul is Live. By the way, I don't think I've ever listened to that.
I haven't.
Came out in '93. So I think really the Paul is Dead theory persists largely as an entertaining pop culture urban legend rather than a credible evidence-based claim.
Right. And
it's just fun.
from a meta perspective, the interesting thing is how I think human nature likes to search for secret clues. Especially you think about the late 60s, the widespread distrust for society. People were looking for things like this, and this is before the internet. Now anybody can find conspiracy theories about anything.
Yeah, you're right.
Back then, it was a little bit more. I mean, people could suspect things, but then once a few print magazines and radio programs start talking about something, then there's such a smaller amount of information at your fingertips that you really could get sucked into something like this. And then,
good point.
Yeah,
good point. And then let's not overlook the impact that the Paul is Dead rumor had on record sales. Abbey Road, that album that was released in September 1969, just as the rumors were peaking, became an immediate commercial success. It reached number one both in the UK and in the US. I remember I bought it right away. And I didn't always buy albums, but that one I had to buy. I just had to have it. So, and then, John Lennon himself had acknowledged that while the rumor was insane, he did admit that it provided invaluable publicity for Abbey Road. It's like, man, this really helped with the sales. So here's kind of a fun one, Luke. In 2009, which was 16, 17 years ago, they had a top 10 list of enduring conspiracy theories, or 10 of them. I don't know if I'm going to list all 10 of them, but do you have an idea where the Paul is dead rumor would have listed among the top 10?
I'd guess it's behind the JFK assassination. And I guess this was 8 years after 9/11, but I think 9/11 was probably, I would put it behind those two, but I would probably put it maybe in the top five.
No, that's a good logical guess. It was actually number 4 out of 10. Okay. Number 3, and this one I got to admit I haven't thought much about or wasn't even aware of it. It was called Area 51 and the aliens. That's a belief that the U.S. Air Force base in Nevada has hidden evidence of extraterrestrial life and technology. Number 2 was the 9/11 cover-up. That's the theory that the U.S. government had foreknowledge of the attacks or was directly involved in a false flag operation. And number 1 was the JFK assassination.
Okay, so those were
the belief that Lee Harvey Oswald did not act alone or was a patsy for either the CIA, the Mafia, or KGB.
I would almost guess if that list it was remade for today, that those would probably be 1 and 2, but 9/11 would probably be number 1.
Yeah. So that was interesting. Out of the top 10, it was number 4.
It was number 4. Okay.
Well, Luke, I always enjoy talking about anything that's Beatles related. Thanks for suggesting this topic. It was really fun researching. I remember a lot of stuff because I was actually alive when it happened, but it's been a while, and just to go and research stuff, it's like, I forgot about that.
Right.
And it's really been a blast doing that. So, and I think the reason it's still popular is it's entertaining. I think people, it's a suspension of disbelief.
Yes.
It's kind of fun to go along with it and say, okay, what's going to happen here? So, and I want to mention or ask another thing, and I think you've mentioned it a few times, but what would it have been like if the Paul is Dead rumor had started today? With social media, would it have gotten even more popular, or would it have faded eventually?
Right. Well, I guess we have social media and the internet creates. In some ways, it would really fuel it because there would be anybody with a social media account could sort of get on something and really. All of a sudden you get a Twitter account with all these likes and comments about, hey, of course this really happened. On the other hand, there would be a lot more pictures available where, you see him walking around. Yeah. But now that we're getting into the era where we've got AI and it's hard to tell the difference, well, now it's... In fact, I think what AI is going to do is it's going to get good enough. It's already getting there where you can't tell a real photo from something that's generated by AI. So I think that if in 2026, if the Paul is Dead rumor happened with similar circumstances to what happened back in 1969. It would really take off and probably even be crazier than it was back then.
Yeah, interesting. It made me think about that because I thought how long ago it was, and I go, what if it happened today? What would the result be? So I'm going to give you the last word on this topic, then, Luke. What are your favorite takeaways when someone mentions the Paul is Dead rumor? What fascinates you the most?
Well, just how cool some of the clues are. I'm going to come back to it again. The holding the mirror in the middle of that bass drum and seeing it spell out 111X he die. That's it's kind of like the Dark Side of the Rainbow when you mix you start Dark Side of the Moon at the Second War of the the second roar of the lion in Wizard of Oz. And
yeah.
the album is there are several places where it's crazy how synced it is. It says up, 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 and they walk up some steps, and down, they walk down. It says black and blue, and they switch between the Wicked Witch of the West and Dorothy. It's really remarkable that it lines up like this, and that somebody thought of this. But then you think about how much effort would it have taken to, unless we live in the Matrix and all this, which some people might think that, but how much effort would it take to create something? Hey, we're going to make this album, and we want it to line up to the Wizard of Oz, or we're going to make this album, and we're going to put these clues where we're going to say Lonely Hearts, because if you put a mirror through it, it looks like this. It's when you think about how much effort would have to go into doing something like that, it just doesn't really make that much sense. But as you said, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to suspend your
disbelief.
Exactly. And just think about, well, hey, there are all these hidden clues. I think there's an intrinsic drive in people to look for hidden information, see what you can find that's not maybe surface level. You dig a little deeper, and I think that's why this is still being discussed. Almost 60 years on.
Yep. Good point. Good point. So.
If Paul McCartney is still the actual Paul McCartney, which I believe he is,
I do too.
But then he's now 84, so he's made it 20 years past his "When I'm 64" song.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Okay, now Luke and I are going to shift gears from the Paul is dead rumor to an equally interesting topic, and that's the 27 Club, which refers to a phenomenon of popular musicians, singers, and singer-songwriters who died at age 27, often due to drug abuse, suicide, or violent circumstances. And Luke, what made you think of this as a topic? I mean, I think it's a great idea, but what made you think of the 27 Club?
Well, we talked about Paul is dead rumors, and so I thought of another topic about musicians and dying at a young age, except for these are people that did actually die.
Yes.
And when I was in college, in undergrad, I had a poster of the 27 Club with 5 faces on it. Yeah, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Brian Jones, Janis Joplin. So all them died in the early 70s, and then Kurt Cobain was also on it. Died in 94. And there are other people that died at 27, other celebrities and musicians, actors and actresses. I think Amy Winehouse died at 27. Maybe about 15 years ago now, probably.
Yeah.
But I think that those. I mean, it was originally the 4. And then Cobain, that he was a big enough musician.
Kind of revived it, or almost kind of gave it a second wind. So, well, it's good you mentioned that. I said I'm gonna limit this just to music, because there are some 27s,
of course.
Actors and writers or whatever. But and I'm just going to go through the list that I found of the 27 Club. First one is Brian Jones, the founder of the Rolling Stones. He died on July 3rd, 1969, 27, of course. Right. And the official cause was drowning in a swimming pool. He had a farm in Cotchford, England, in East Sussex, England. The coroner's report officially ruled the death as death by misadventure, citing the influence of drugs and alcohol. Sure. I know he was. I remember reading Keith Richards' biography, Life, and he spent a lot of time talking about Brian Jones and his problem with drugs and alcohol.
And if Keith Richards says you have a problem with drugs and alcohol, then you do.
Yeah, right. Do you remember the name of his girlfriend? She's the one who found him in the pool. I forgot her name. I don't
off the top of my head.
Her name was Anna Wolin, Wohlin, but she's the one who actually found him.
Right.
And he had just recently been dismissed or fired from the Stones.
Sure.
Richards and Jagger said, no, we just can't carry on anymore.
Right.
He was really reduced, too, on some of the later albums. He was like an instrumentalist. He played, the bongos or the flute or something. He wasn't,
played a lot of instruments.
Yeah, yep. And there was one bit of controversy, I guess, in his death. There was a builder named Frank Thorogood who was present at the house that night. And supposedly on his deathbed, he told the Stones tour manager at the time, Tom Keelock, that it was me that did Brian.
Yes, I've heard that too.
But evidently, they haven't gone any further with that. Though.
Sure.
But that was interesting about Brian Jones.
Right.
The next one I've got, I'm kind of doing this in chronological order.
Sure.
It's Jimi Hendrix.
Yep.
He died on September 18th, 1970, in London from accidental asphyxiation. And I remember when I first heard this, it almost made me gag. He choked on his own vomit while he was intoxicated with barbiturates. He was found unresponsive in the Samarkand Hotel and pronounced dead at the local hospital.
Same way Bon Scott went.
Yeah,
I think he was a bit older than 27.
Yeah, yep. And the cause of death was just what it said: asphyxiation due to influence of barbiturates. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts on the death of him? And when you heard about how he died?
Well, I guess it doesn't. I think like a lot of those musicians, they did really abuse themselves and their bodies.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't heard if there's any controversy around his death. I don't think anyone thinks, oh, he was secretly killed and then they framed it like this.
Yeah.
I guess, being born 17 years after this, I never got to experience him as a living musician. Mm-hmm. I can imagine how people would have been really shocked by it because
I was a senior in high school when that happened. It was huge.
You have someone like Brian Jones, and I mean, he was a founding member of the Rolling Stones. Some of their early stuff, he was a big part of the group, but he did kind of get pushed out by Jagger and Richards. And so, you have a guy that's a third or fourth wheel of the band, and he dies in the swimming pool. It's like, it's sad. But you got a guy like Hendrix, who's at his absolute prime.
Oh, yeah.
This was, less than a year after Woodstock, and all of a sudden he's dead. And he died in a, pretty terrible way. I mean, choking on your own vomit's a bad way to go. So that's, I guess, all I have to say on it. I didn't live through it, but I can imagine that it would have been, huge news.
Then the next one chronologically was Janis Joplin, a singer. She died on October 4th, 1970. That was an acute heroin overdose, which was also a shame because she was very popular and everybody seemed to love her. Her music was great. So. Let's move on to the next person. I'm sure you've heard of Jim Morrison from the Doors.
Once or twice.
That was a big deal too when that happened. It was the summer of 71, July 3rd, and I can remember that. Guys were talking about that. He supposedly, or they listed as heart failure, right?
Right.
But it was in France, and they never did an autopsy.
Right.
And there's been rumors that it was actually more from drugs than
drugs, or I've heard drugs speculated. He was a horrendous alcoholic. If you've seen any pictures of him toward the end of his life, he got to be obese.
Yeah,
he went from being, he's got his shirt off on the first Doors album cover. He's not a skinny guy. He's kind of muscular, but he wasn't fat at all. By the time this album, L.A. Woman, and then L.A. Woman, he had the beard, the full beard, so you couldn't really see how fat his face was.
Right.
The last ever photo of him, he was cleanly shaven, and he looks like he's
47.
Well, he looks old, and he looks like he's 280 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
So I think he was a guy who it could have been an acute overdose of drugs or alcohol, or it could have been just several years of abusing his body horribly, and then maybe he did just have a heart attack or something. He was buried in that famous, I think Père Lachaise, I think that's what it's called, in Paris. And I know he had a headstone, but that was stolen decades ago. And
a lot of people make a point to visit that too when they go to Jim Morrison's grave. So All right, the next one I've got listed here was Kurt Cobain, the frontman from Nirvana. And that was several years later. That was in April 5th, 1994, the date before my birthday. And that was supposedly, they ruled it as suicide.
Right.
But there's also been some controversy that it could have been homicide too as well. Right. So do you ever have possible, who would have been behind that or? Not his ex-wife.
Well, I mean, some people have speculated Courtney Love had something to do with it, but I do remember some years ago. I don't know all the details of it, but there were supposedly a couple guys that maybe were some other musicians that maybe he did some work with that framed his death.
Yeah.
They gave him too much heroin. Mm-hmm. Killed him with that, and then they forged the suicide note, which I've read the whole thing before, and it's got horrible handwriting, but so some of it's hard to read. But I would guess you can usually, someone who knows you will know what your handwriting looks like, and that'd be pretty hard to forge. And I guess unless Courtney Love was in on it, and that looks like his handwriting. I think there would be some way to confirm that that wasn't his handwriting if it really wasn't. But yeah, that they made him OD because supposedly what happens to your body after a heroin overdose versus what happens to your body after you get a shotgun blast is going to be different.
Right.
And supposedly the autopsy isn't completely consistent with dying from a shotgun blast. But I don't know how much of this is rumor or speculation.
And that's the Seattle Police Department has stood by its original ruling.
Right.
They haven't reopened it or anything. So the next one from the 27 Club member we have listed is Amy Winehouse, and she died in 2011. Like you said, it's been about 15 years, and that was from alcohol poisoning. She was found in her London home, and it said she was 5 times the legal driving limit.
Oh, geez.
That's a lot, especially as little as she was anyway.
Right.
She was kind of bulimic, I'd heard, and so she had all kinds of health issues. But too bad though. I've heard her songs on the radio. The Current plays a lot of this stuff, and great voice, great blues singer. Really too bad. All right, the last one I mentioned. This is a guy I had not heard of until I started researching it, and they put him in the club. But this was way before anybody else. This was back in 1938. A blues musician named Robert Johnson.
That's right.
He was only 27. And they said that he died from the official cause listed as no doctor. What that means, some suggested he was poisoned with strychnine by a jealous husband. They think he died from drinking whiskey laced with something called, was it naphthalene or camphor? I'm not sure. In parentheses next to naphthalene, they'd say mothballs. So I don't know what that means. What a way to go. So again, that was way before my time, but he must have been some musician.
He's a very famous blues and influential blues musician.
Yeah.
Back from the 30s. I think there's one. I know there's at least one recording of him singing several songs, maybe as many as around 20, and I know a lot of in years since I think his dying had to do with his legend.
Okay.
He was a good musician, but then you die, and then you become, you
famous.
become remembered and more famous.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I think that people reference him in music going forward. I can think of, I can think of an Elton John song, for instance, where he mentions Robert Johnson.
Oh, I didn't.
So there's,
I wasn't aware of that.
and probably a lot off the top of my head. That's the only one that I can think of, but probably a lot more references in music to him.
Yep. All right, Luke. I'm going to let you have the last word on the 27 Club. Again, why you selected this topic, and what takeaways did you get from a group like this?
Well, when I was 18, I had this poster on my dorm room wall, and it's a real cool poster. I think I've still got it rolled up somewhere, and there's a lot of little clues, not really clues, but little things written it's hand drawn, and it's got a lot of little things written in there. It's a poster you can spend hours looking at and still notice new things. So it was always something that I thought was cool. And when I was 18, I'm thinking, these people are 9 years older than me. And I had it up, and when I'd move, and I usually would have it on the wall probably at least through my late 20s. And I remember it was a big deal when I got to be that age where, okay, now I'm as old as these people. Now I'm 11 years older than them. It is crazy to think about what somebody can accomplish at that young age.
So young. Yeah.
and then you die, and you still have you have this amazing body of work, but it also just what if Hendrix was one of these one of these guys who's in his early 80s now who's still going around and touring.
Yeah.
Same with, I mean, Jim Morrison, the Doors kept touring. I think Raymond Zurich died a few years ago, but the Doors toured for decades after his death. And, some of these bands, it would have been real interesting to see what they would have kept producing if they wouldn't have died.
Right.
You have, I think Keith Moon made it to 32, before he died, but, so he missed the club by a little bit, but, he's another guy who, now the Who replaced him, the Who kept, touring and making music, but, he was a pretty big part of their band, and it would have been interesting to see what they, would have done with him.
Interesting. Good point. Well, Luke, this has been a blast recording this episode with you. First about Paul is dead, rumor, and then the 27 Club, which is fascinating. I'm glad you made yourself available for us to get together. Be sure to let your friends and colleagues back in Austria know about the episode.
Oh, I will.
Thanks again, nephew. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I hope to do it again.
And again, to our listeners, thanks for hanging out with me, Bob Edholm, and my guest, my nephew, Luke Edholm. We hope you'll join us for the next episode of Hanging Out with Bob, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And until then, bye.